Okay.
Be on with everybody.
All right. Hey, folks. Hey, folks, are you able to hear me? All right. So I guess Cynthia, I apologize. This is something new for us. So we've never done a Teams event before. We've always done this on Zoom, but we made the discovery that it's pretty. We have Teams, so we might as well use it and figure out how it all functions.
Hey, Kevin, I guess they can't hear you.
No, they're saying that they can hear me. Bryce Brady.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
Okay. So I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Again, sorry for the little late start as we worked through the technical issues. Took us a little bit of time to figure out how do we actually start the meeting. And so with that, I'd like to, well, let's kick it off. So welcome, Ardura. I want to thank you for joining us today as we welcome our panel consisting of members of the Ardura family with Asian origins. I would be remiss if I didn't state from the outset that few continents are as diverse and varied as Asia. So it would be a mistake to assume that we can fully capture the breadth of that diversity in this lecture. Instead, my hope is to spotlight the experiences of our panel members and how those experiences have influenced their life decisions and career choices. And so with that, I'd like to introduce our panel. And so we have Loc Truong.
Hello.
And we have Twin Tran.
Hello.
And we have Nancy Perec.
Hey, everyone.
So, real quick question. When somebody talks, or you guys see it, or does it change between the viewers? Maybe not. I'm trying to figure out if I need to click on you guys. Well, we might have to do that. So, all right. So welcome, folks. You know, I'm like to begin by asking each of you if you'd share a little bit of your personal history. You know, from where does your family come, and you know what was there in your path to the United States. And Loc, if okay, I think I will go ahead and start with you.
Sure. Well, good morning, everybody, and appreciate everybody jumping online to hear our story. I guess a little bit about myself. So I have been with the company for going on 19 years. I started in 2004 here as the original one of the King Engineering folks. My journey here has not always been straightforward, so I'll get into that. So my background, I am born in Vietnam, in Saigon, Vietnam. That's in southern Vietnam. I was born in 1978, but back in 1975, that was the fall of Vietnam with the Vietnam War. And so my family, some portion of my family, my uncles were in the military, so they left to the United States at that time. And our family, my mom and dad, stayed behind. And because my dad, he was an educated male, after the fall of Vietnam, they really took any males that were educated to what they call re-education camp, right? That was the intended purpose, is that you don't try to overthrow the new government that took over. So he went to a concentration camp for several years and developed cancer. And so by the time 1980 rolled around, we finally were able to get sponsorship from my grandmother, who had already immigrated with my uncle with the CIA over to the United States. So they were able to sponsor us to come to the United States. So we left in 1980, but right before we left, my father had passed away. He came back from re-education camp, and he didn't survive it. So we left Vietnam. It was never a straightforward journey. My mom, at the time I was only 2 years old, so I still have pictures, but we weren't the traditional boat people that left by boat. We left by air, but it wasn't just a straight flight from here to the United States. So we had to land in Thailand and spend several months in a refugee camp. My sister at the time was about 10 years old, so she remembers, just going through the kind of refugee camp and bringing buckets of water back just for drinking water. So it's a lot of stuff that, you think about today, and you think about like refugee camp. We're so far away from that, right? But we stayed there for, I think, about 6 months until we arrived in the United States. So the first state we came into was California. So we lived in Newport Beach, California. I lived there from like 1981 till 1988. My mom was a medical doctor, so she opened up her own practice in Pensacola, Florida. So we moved to Pensacola, Florida in '88. I went to school there, grew up there, and then decided to go up to RPI for college. That's up in upstate New York, where it snows like crazy. So I spent several years up there, finished my college education, and my first job was down in Wilmington, North Carolina for Corning Incorporated. And I started there, worked there. That's a fiber optic manufacturing plant. At the same time, I met a young lady at the time going up to school. She happened to work in New York City for Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, and doing the long distance thing between New York and North Carolina didn't work out so well. So I decided to get a new job back in upstate New York at a 40 MGD water treatment facility, surface water treatment facility. So that's how I kind of got into the water business. And then after a while of, 7 years up in upstate New York, I was like, Tara, I'm tired of the snow. We need to get out of here. So I interviewed with Chris Kusler back in 2004. And then here I still am talking about this story. So I guess that's a long introduction, but that takes us at least till like today.
Awesome. What an amazing story. So Twin, if I can jump over to you, and I'll let you share.
I have a very similar story to Locke's. My family is from Saigon, Vietnam, and currently known as Ho Chi Minh City, of course, but to us, it's always Saigon. At the 1975, at the fall of Saigon, my mom, my dad, and 5 of my siblings, which are, that's a feat on its own. We escaped by boat, I believe, to the Philippine island, and we were taken into a refugee camp. And I think somewhere along the line, we got on a plane and flew over to Arkansas, and was in another camp waiting for someone to sponsor us. So we finally received news that we had a sponsor family in Bradenton, Florida. And they were, a wonderful family that set us up with a home, a job, things like that, get the kids ready for school. So we, pretty much loved Bradenton and have stayed Bradenton all of my life, mostly, until I came to Tampa, of course, for school and for work. So I really don't see myself in any other state. We like the tropical weather. I was 4 years old at the time, and basically my job was to learn English. So we never really spoke Vietnamese at home. They made us speak English all the time, just so that we could get really good at it. So if you hear an accent, you know, I wasn't allowed to speak Vietnamese at home. Attend school and help with household chores, of course, with the siblings and kids, and to make sure that I could succeed as an adult and be successful. You know, I've been with Ardura for 25 years. Started off at King Engineering. I got interviewed by Mike Ross, and he is still my boss to the day. So I feel pretty comfortable with the company, you know, because over the years I've gotten to know, you know, all the people. Most of the people I've worked with throughout the years are still here, you know, 20 to 30 years after. So that's my story.
Very good. Mancy, I'm switching over to you now.
Sure. Thanks, Kevin. Train and Locke, listening to your stories, like really great stories. It makes me feel like my problems are not problems, really. So, hey, everybody. I'm from Mumbai, India, and I did my undergrad and most of my education in India, and then I came here to pursue my master's. A little bit of a backstory. When I was in school, like in 9th grade, we had a major flood event in Mumbai, and my apartment got flooded with like 6 feet of water. And we used to stay on the first floor. So it was crazy. We had to leave everything as is and just run, and could not come back for over 2 days. And it was basically due to the drainage system in Mumbai, which was so old and just not efficient. And that's when, when I was 15 or 16, I decided that I wanted to do something about it. So that was my driver for pursuing an environmental engineering degree. And at the time, there were not a lot of options in India to actually pursue a master's degree in environmental engineering. So that's when I made the decision to move here. My family was not super pumped about me moving, but I had to do it. So all my family is still back in India, but that I'm the first person from the family to come to the United States. So that's my story. And right now I am at the St. Augustine office, and I've been with Ardura for almost 6 years now. And CART actually hired me right out of college. We were Constantine before, and now we are Ardura. So I've been with CART in this office for.
Awesome. Wonderful. All right. Sorry, guys, it's a little clunky. I'm getting used to how I got to switch between cameras and how it does it. So, next I'd like to ask about, you just shared a little bit about your immigrant experience and what brought you here. And I'd like you to ask a little more specifically in terms of how do you feel like that your experience as an immigrant has influenced your career decisions and kind of brought you where you are today. And if you don't mind, I'll start with you, Twin.
I guess seeing how hard my parents worked to support us. I mean, mostly when they came over here, they had to do manual labor jobs because they didn't have experience or the education. So I put all my efforts into getting a good education. I was the first person from my family to graduate from college. I did go to USF. There was a lot of Asians at the time at USF, and pretty much we all went into engineering. So most of them actually went into software engineering or electrical engineering. I was the lone civil engineer. So, but I felt like I needed to go do something that, the other, I guess, friends weren't doing. I wanted to go into construction. I wanted to go into, land development, that kind of stuff. I thought it was kind of new world area, not just sitting at your desk, which although I do sit at my desk quite a bit now. But yeah, I just wanted to succeed, show my family that, we can do it. And I think I led by example. So after that, my little sister and my little brothers all got their degrees. But I wanted to just show that, I could do it. and I've done it. I feel like it is a different role, especially, you know, when you're in construction meetings and you're the little Asian woman going out there in a hard hat, you know, with all these gruff guys. So it's definitely an experience, but I feel like I just wanted to show everybody that I can do it in this field, and that's kind of where I pursued that path.
Wonderful. Okay, Mansi, I'm going to pass it on to you.
Sure. So would you please repeat the question, Kevin? I got distracted listening to Twain's story.
So basically, you know, your immigrant experience, how has that influenced what you know, the career choices that you've made, and how you think, you know, how you got where you are and where you're going, and how it influenced that?
Right. So when I first boarded my flight from India, I was like so ready to live the American dream, and I was super pumped about it. And when I landed here, I was wondering, like, what did I do? So when I first got here, I went to Gainesville for school. And for those of you who don't know, it's a college town. It's a party town, but during a summer break, there's nobody in that town. So I come from a city like as busy as New York, and it's always something going on. And then suddenly I wake up and I'm in this town where there's nobody. And then when I landed, I lost all my bags. The airline lost my bags, and I basically was empty-handed. So I had no clothes, no food that my mom had sent with me, and I was living in somebody else's apartment because my apartment was not ready, and it was a disaster. All I did was cry and question my life choices at that point. But that made me realize that if I can overcome that, I can literally overcome like most obstacles in life. So that has helped me a lot, like live through different challenges like every day. Also, another major driver for me was I had left behind all my family and the life I had for 20 years. So I make sure to put my everything and everything I do to make sure that I do justice to the life that I had left behind. So that's usually the major influence that these things have had on my career choices.
Wow, very cool. All right, Locke.
Yeah, so I guess for me, you know, I guess the journey that it took for us to come over here, I still remember when we lived in California, although my mother was a medical doctor in Vietnam, but when you come over to the States, you can't just, you know, begin to practice, right? You had to get board certified. But in the meantime, she still had to raise us, right, in a new country. She actually never drove before. We always had a driver in Vietnam. So, you know, her first job, I mean, she had multiple jobs, just kind of doing what it takes to raise the family. So she was a baker. She poured chocolate. She did chocolate like production for a very long time while she was getting ready to study. So a lot of it was just, I remember walking to grocery stores. I'm sorry.
Wow.
So, you know, the struggles that you see, that you go through in life, I think it gives me the inspiration all the time to try to make sure that I always think positively and give it my best at everything you do, because that's what you should always do. You know, life is never easy, but, you know, if you think about where you come from and where you got to, you just have to thank God for all the gifts that you've been given, and to continue to do your best. You know, it's never easy, right? And even growing up in an Asian culture, I mean, it is the very stereotypical, you know, when you're growing up in an Asian culture, you're supposed to be educated. You're either a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer, or some profession, okay? You can't be anything else. So, you know, I lived, when I first came over, because my mom was studying, I actually lived with my grandmother for like about 4 years. And she was very strict. I mean, it was very strict, right? Where growing up, it's like you learn, you know, as Asian, you're learning like at 5, 6 years old, you're doing tasks already, right? And so, you know, she always said, you got to do your best. You cannot do not your best. So, you know, that's still, every time I think about anything, that kind of background is still instilled in me that, no matter what it is, you always do the right thing and you give it your best. And so really, for all of us, it doesn't really matter what nationality you are, whether you're white, African American, Asian. It's just knowing, your background, knowing where you come from. Everybody comes from some different degree of struggle. Nobody struggles more or less. And just always remember, I guess, to harness that energy and give it your all and chase your dreams. And so, I've been here, I would say as a company, we are, I've stayed here long because I think, as a company, we do really take care of our employees and care for our employees, and just being able to, I guess, share this story is good. I even told Kevin at the beginning, usually I go into presentations, for clients or anything to win a job. I'm like super confident that, to give a presentation, this is the one that probably I'm at least confident, because we're sharing things that normally I don't, share in public. There's probably a few folks here in the Tampa office that kind of knows my background, but not everybody. So I don't know. I went all over the place. So I don't know if I answered the question, but
no, you did, and I'm so appreciative of you, agreeing to share these experiences and stuff. And this is how, we get to know each other as people within the organization and within the Ardura family. And so, hopefully this is what I love about this forum, is it provides a real ability for us to share some of these things that we don't usually talk about. And I completely understand, this is, when you're going in to talk to a client, you're not dealing with the emotional elements is what you are when you're talking about, your experience and your mom and your grandmother and all that. It's very different kind of experience. So.
Yeah, Locke, I agree to everything you said, to the point. I remember when I was in school, I was not a straight A student, but that was a lot of pressure to be a straight A student. And I was like, I just can't do it. I just want to dance.
Yeah. That's not one of the approved professions in the Asian culture. Yeah. You're supposed to be good at math and science. Come on now.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that is so interesting about this is, so often we look at it from the perspective of the what are the challenges you encounter from, other cultures or prejudices and stuff like that. But, there are a lot of pressures that come within cultures as well, and establishing expectations, which can be sometimes hard to live up to. Next question that I'd like to put out there, what do you, obviously each of you have come from, different parts, different areas and stuff. And I know, Twin, you were here at 4, so your connection to Vietnam may not be quite as strong necessarily as Locke or Mansi to India. But what do you wish that people better understood about where you came from? And I'll start with Mansi.
Sure. So first, the most important thing is there is no curry in India.
What?
Because every time I go anywhere, it was like, yeah, I really like curry. And I'm like, there is no curry in India. So that word does not exist. So if you go to India, please don't mention curry.
What should we ask for then? Is that just...
I mean, so every part of India will have a different variety of things to eat. So just trust who's serving you and just tell them what you like, and they'll probably give you a better, you'll probably get a better deal that way than asking for curry. But on a more serious note, there's a question that I often get asked. It's like, oh, you're from India. Why is your English so good? And I'm like, people need to realize that most of us have had our education done in English, even though English is not our first language. We are still fluent enough in English, and it's not very surprising to us. Like in India, like even my parents, when I talk to my parents, like 50% of the time we do talk in English. So it's very surprising to some people here that we're so good in English. So, and another recommendation would be, if don't derive assumptions about a culture from like just watching movies or just from like people's opinions. Try to like have a conversation with a coworker or a neighbor or a friend who actually have lived the reality to have a better picture of what it actually is.
Very good.
That's my 2 cents.
Okay. Hey, Locke, I'm sending it over to you.
Okay. Yeah, I guess just to reiterate what Monsi is saying, I think, it's always easy. It's normal human nature, right? To what you see on TV, what you see on the internet, it must be true. And, you make assumptions about people. And so it's always better to, get to know them, their background, where they come from, so that way you understand them better. And especially for ourselves, as co-workers, we across the board, I mean, here in the Tampa office in our water wastewater group, we have a pretty good mix of folks from all kinds of different backgrounds, and it really is enlightening, because you get to understand, because everybody comes based on your background, your culture, your environment that you're raised in. It makes it a little bit different how you have to communicate to each other, because not everybody takes the same, comment you may make, same, right? Because it's how it's perceived is different. So I think just getting to understand people from all different cultures is always good, and just don't have any prejudice or prejudgment.
Okay. Okay, Twin, sending to you.
I'm still recovering from Locke and his speech earlier. It was very heartwarming, Locke. No, I've lived most of the time in this country, and like I said, my English is probably pretty good. So,
Yep.
So I never ran into that problems with an accent or that kind of stuff. I've always been, I guess, the shy kid. So when I came to Ardura or King Engineering the first time, one of my coworkers that were helping me around was Rhonda at the time, Rhonda Tackney. We actually attended an aggressiveness course, for females, just because she's like, "You're so timid," and I'm like, "You're right." And I think over the years, that's actually helped me quite a bit growing, just because I could never be a public speaker. I could, and now I'm just getting better at it. And I feel like that's, just being part of that Asian culture where girls are meek and mild and, don't really say much and speak your mind. I speak my mind quite a bit now. So, and then
Good.
last year, I recently visited Vietnam late last year for the first time since leaving it 48 years ago. So I just aged myself, but that's okay. The country, it's amazing, the flourishing life and entrepreneurial people back. They're just able to just be, no matter what their background, whatever, they are able to just live, and they're selling candles, street vendors, shoe shiners. They're people that aren't afraid to work, and I feel pretty proud that I have that, that background. That my family, we were in the restaurant business before. I'm probably the first person in my family that is not in the restaurant business. So it's always been hard work. That's the mantra that my parents always put into me. So I'm not sure if that answered the question, but
it did. Wonderful. All right. So now I'm gonna kind of my hard question. The pandemic definitely shined a light on racism against people of Asian origins, but it's by no means new or subtle. We look back at historical events such as the Chinese Exclusion Act in 1882, the internment of Japanese Americans in the Second World War. Even today, individuals from India working in the U.S. on H-1B visas and applying for skill-based green cards can expect much longer processing times than many other countries. So what do you feel, and I know that's a lot to swallow, but, what do you feel we can do both as a company and as individuals to better, to be better allies for the Asian communities and further break down obstacles raised up through prejudice and racism? I'll send it over to Locke to start.
Yeah, I think it's a good topic to talk about, H-1Bs, Kevin. Probably in every office, and it seems like in every industry, it's becoming more challenging to find skilled labor, right? In our case, engineering staff. It's not easy to come by to find folks that are that have the experience that we can just bring on right away. So more and more, in other countries, if there are that talent, then I think as a company, I would say, I rewind 5-10 years ago, we never really entertained H-1Bs, right? If we interviewed somebody and they had, they said, hey, I'm on a visa, that was almost a deal breaker for us as a company. As King, we're like, okay, we're just not going to touch that because it's just too much or whatever it is. But, now I really like that, we are as a company willing to entertain that and trying to help get folks that are on, whether you're going from a student visa and then in a few years you're going to need sponsorship. So I think that's really helpful because, it's one of those things. Sometimes it's really difficult to find folks, whether it's in your local area, to get them hired onto the company. And if it means that, somebody that is in a H-1B status or needs to get that status and we're able to help them, that, it's a win-win for all of us, I think, for that person, because they want to stay in the United States to work, and then we need the professional labor. So I don't think any of those things hurt. So.
Yep. And, we actually, March 17th was the filing deadline for the H-1B lottery. I think we had 28 applications for the lottery, just so you give you a view of kind of how much we're talking about. It's really amazing.
Yeah, right, Kevin. Even, when you joined, several years ago, we probably didn't have any or very few, right?
There were maybe two.
Right.
Two. And so we've come a long way from there.
Yes.
So good. I'm going to jump over to Mancy now.
Sure. Yeah, it's when I was Locke and Kevin, to add to what you guys just said, when I was first looking for jobs like 6 years ago, I could not get past the initial screening process just because of my visa requirement. And it was really hard to even land an interview in that case because the online applications just screen you out if you are not eligible or require sponsorship to work in the United States. But I'm glad things are much better now. Looking at how many people have applied for their H-1Bs in the recent lottery, so that's good to hear. And I say that because I'm currently on my H-1B and I think it expires next year. So
we're working on your green card now, right?
So, as an employer, you guys have been really good and very supportive and responsive and helping me out through the process of renewals and applying for green card. So that's really good. I know that it's a very stressful process, and you cannot expect a positive outcome. It's something we cannot control. You cannot control it. I cannot control it. It is just what it is. So, all you can do is just provide a status update and keep the candidate in the loop as to what's happening and what the next steps are, and just be supportive that if something comes up, they have someone to fall back on. Because recently I heard even when people go back to India to renew their visas, usually the timeline is about 2 weeks, but sometimes it takes 6 weeks or 7 weeks and they're just stuck there. So there needs to be some kind of flexibility where they can work remotely or do something, because just nobody has PTO where it's 6 weeks, and then it just is very stressful and hard on people to deal with it. So, And then for people who are currently applying for their H1 and green card, just be patient and it'll work out. I mean, I know it's really hard to say just be patient because I've been through it and I was not patient. But trust me, it's not worth the extra stress that when you can't control the outcome. So.
Yeah, I don't think people that have not been through it or, at least involved in it the way that I am in my job of working with you guys and having my team work with you guys and working with the attorneys, there's not a good understanding, I think, of how stressful and how involved and how challenging that is. And, and just the stress of that comes with not knowing, okay, what if it doesn't get approved,
Yeah.
And it's horrible. It's one of those things that I wish that, that I honestly think that we do a horrible job in the US, and I think we could do much better at. We have a huge need for engineers, that we cannot provide and meet domestic. And, opening up more H-1B slots so that we can get more engineers through the door. I would like, that's the direction I wish we were heading. So.
And as you said, I mean, a lot of people don't understand how stressful it is. And I'll put a number to it, because we are engineers and we like numbers, right? So for an Indian national to get an employment-based green card, the wait right now is 150 years, statistically speaking. So a lot of people will just keep working and stay on their work visas and they'll never see a green card. So it's a long process.
It's sad. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So, all right, Twin.
Wow, well, I haven't had to deal with all that just because I am a U.S. citizen. But I find that, I mean, Ardura does a pretty good job with diversity. I think when I look around, at least where we are in the Tampa office, we probably have the higher number of female engineers from different, nationalities and stuff. So I feel like that's always comforting to me. Because even though engineering is more, a lot of male dominated field, but I feel like we do have a lot of female engineers. So I like that a lot. I like that I'm part of that group. And since I've been here so long, I feel like I'm more comfortable in my, comfort levels. But somebody who's not, I think, they can see that and they can come talk to me. Like I have a entry engineer that works with me that's also of Asian descent. So trying to mentor her, trying to mentor other people, I think it helps them to be more comfortable, to get them out of their shell, to participate. That's always, they want to see somebody doing the same thing so they can try to, follow in their footsteps. I like seeing, the leadership, like Laksa, practice director, that's great. So it's great to see the leadership and the diversity in the leadership.
Thank you. It's something that we work very hard at and that we're very proud of. But we've got, it's a continuous struggle and challenge. Getting, just being able to attract and bring in and support, not, obviously not just immigrants of Asian background, but American citizens of Asian background, and showing that diversity, I think is always so critical and is the momentum and the reason behind having these discussions here. So with that, I would like to open it up if there are any questions on the Q&A. Let's see, Sean Renee has a question just regarding, I think, the H-1B visas. So we had 28 that we went in. For the first round lottery, we've been notified of 2. Hopefully that will grow. But it's, that gives you a little bit of viewpoint. Now, each one of these, there are different scenarios. Some individuals are on each one of these that are going to, it doesn't necessarily mean they're, all those things are rejected by any means. Some are still on student visas and have periods of time before those expire. But it gives you a little bit of a viewpoint of what we're up against. It's really hard. It's really hard to, it's a commitment that we've made as an organization, which is tough. And it's, not just from that, but also, there's a cost associated with it, a commitment that we're making as a company, as well as the cost to the employee. It's, people should never underestimate the impact and the steadfastness of the individuals that go through this process, because it is not an easy process. So we got a question here from John Carpenter. Says, I love the stories. It seems like all 3 are very loyal to Ardura. Can they talk about loyalty associated with background culture? So, I guess from an Asian perspective, or the Asian culture perspective, you guys kind of shared and laughed about kind of what some of the expectations were. Curious what, do you feel like there are pressures on, what it is, loyalty, or if there are expectations put on you from culture-wise? From a loyal perspective?
Yeah, I can, at least that's an excellent question. I think in Asian cultures, it's very kind of surrounded around family, right? So family is very important in Asian cultures. And I think, at least for me, the reason that, I've been loyal and been here all these years is honestly, as we work together. Everything we do here, right? Engineering is not a DIY type sport. It requires a team of folks to get stuff done. So you really get to know the people you work with. And we really treat the folks here as family. We see them as family, right? Every day, every really thing that, every project we chase or try to get more work is to make sure that your family members will stay employed, right? That's the way I see it. I worry about that all the time, that, hey, what is the next project down the road? Because the last thing I would want to do to my family is, tell them any type of bad news. So I think, that background, the Asian background, family culture is very important and sticking together. So that's made me really, want to stick it out here, I guess. That's the best way I can say it.
Awesome. Mandy Twin, do you have anything to add that you'd like to?
Yeah, I agree completely with what Locke said. And we also try to bring our culture to work a lot. Like, I know Locke dressed up one time in his Vietnamese attire, and we tried to, it's not like 2 different things. There's always like the gap is always bridged by some commonalities between like your professional and your personal life. So I think the loyalties are equally shared between the 2, but there's no such hard and fast rule that you have to do something or not. But I mean, I feel as individuals and from the backgrounds that we come from, we are very family-oriented people, and then we are also very true to what we do on a daily basis. So our work and our work families.
Yeah, I agree with both, Locke. And so it's just, I've been here so long also that everybody is kind of like family to me. I mean, the eco department, we go over there, we walk down to the water department. And yes, Locke makes me dress up also in the Vietnamese outfits. And survey, and just so many people that I feel loyal to them, and I feel loyal to my team, and of course to keep them busy and get them, new work in so that we can keep this machine going. So yes, I feel like I I depend on them and they depend on me. So.
Very good.
Mhm.
I've got a comment here from Linda Lynn, who, not a question, but I 100% agree on the statement of family. And she states that as the youngest daughter, she has the responsibility of taking care of her parents as they get older. And I think that's a challenge that is by no means specific to Asian communities, because I think we all feel kind of, there's that, my wife is of Cuban descent, and so there was very much that kind of, I know it's a strong value within Hispanic culture as well. But I guess, do you guys feel that there are, because of that closeness and that focus on family, that there are probably additional pressures on those of Asian backgrounds to make sacrifices or to be supportive of their family more so than maybe what some other cultures do?
I mean, for me, it's the other way around, that I'm so far away from my family that I feel like I should be more involved in taking care of my parents, but I really don't have the advantage of doing that. Like, I don't have that honor of being there for them when something goes wrong. So I'm always here on the phone talking to my brother saying what's happening and what's going on. I just can't be there in person. So there's pros and cons to every situation, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I had taken care of my mom when she had dementia years ago. Luckily, I mean, I have 6 brothers and sisters, so we took turns taking care of her. Since I worked during the week, I took care of her during the weekend, and everybody just took 2 days out of the week. And she passed away peacefully at home with her family. So I feel completely proud of that, for us doing that. And my dad passed away a long time ago. So, but we always took care of each other. Now we have, the brothers and sisters, and we're pretty tight. So
Good. I have one last question, which I think is a great question from Melissa Sutton Singh, and we'll end on that one. Can you speak to Asian culture, singular versus Asian cultures, plural, and how non-Asian coworkers can engage, learn more about your cultures in a way that is honoring to you? So I think that's always a question. Sometimes it's hard, and that's what I love about these events, is it opens some of the dialogue that some folks may feel uncomfortable, maybe coming and asking, what are, asking about your backgrounds or kind of the experiences you've had. And so I guess, Twin, I got you on the camera still. So what, you three obviously are very comfortable having those discussions because you agreed to do this. So, but are there particular ways that you prefer that people, or do you, or are there ways that you prefer not to have people ask you about kind of what is, things about your culture, or
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of, I think the way I look, I guess I could, some people think I'm Chinese, some people think I'm Filipino. So, I'm just like, I'm Asian descent. But I don't really mind questions. Here we go out to lunch we love going to Vietnamese restaurants and Thai restaurants and Indian restaurants. And I think that's always, food is always comfortable sharing. But I don't feel uncomfortable when people ask me questions about my background. It's a pretty open book. And I encourage it, actually, just so that people, kind of know me. So hopefully that answers the question.
Absolutely. Manzi, I'm going to send it over to you.
Sure. So personally, there's a very rare chance that I would get offended by a question on like people wanting to know more about my country or my background. And as long as the intent is good, I mean, I would entertain all questions as long as you're interested in knowing more about the culture. One more, Locke, here I'm going to steal an idea of yours. So you better come up with another one when it's your turn. So the Tampa office, I know, does this World Week thing occasionally where they volunteer some people to like bring in their own food or order food from like a cultural restaurant, like whether it is Asian or Indian or Vietnamese or whatever it is. And they try to dress up, and it's just a fun way to introduce culture into an office environment. So I think that's also a good way to like do something in your office or your region to like get together and have a diverse lunch at some point. So
Good. All right, Locke, I'll let you.
Yeah. Sure. In Tampa, we recently,
Final words.
I think in the last 2 years, we've done like a Chinese New Year like kind of celebration where we would decorate, at least in the water wastewater department. It's somewhat to the degree we're like, welcome to Chinatown when you walk into our area. But it's really good because it we bring in, we'll order in food, Asian food, so that way it gets everybody kind of at least broadens their horizon as what Asian cultures are like, and then we'll do the whole zodiac thing just to see what everybody's zodiac is. So there's all those little things that I think in every Asian culture it's good for folks to learn and understand, and it helps break down any insecurities that we have, right? I think as human beings, no matter what nationality you come from, we all have our insecurities, and whether it's in our technical knowledge, in our ability to speak, read and write, but just remember, never let that hold you back from your potential to do great things as a human being, as an engineer in the company, and just be proactive to learning, because that's really going to broaden your horizons. So
Wonderful. Great way to top it off. All right. Well, I want to thank the panel. Thank you guys so much for coming and sharing your stories. I think these discussions are so important and so key and critical to the diverse and inclusive culture that we really do work hard to build. And so thank you again. And thank you to all those who were in attendance. Very, very much appreciate you guys coming. We'll have the next one here scheduled. I think I've got it scheduled for probably July, August. And I'm always looking for opportunities. So if somebody has an idea, if anybody has something that they would like to do, or they think that would be a great topic, then always feel free to reach out to me. Okay. All right, guys. Have a wonderful rest of the week. And, happy, April Fools coming up. Take care all. Bye,
Thank you.
guys.
thanks, everybody.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.